We learn chords backwards on the guitar, and people often never learn the first step, and it's this first step that you're missing. You need to know this, you need to know this. However good you are, or wherever you're at, you need to know this. You don't know how to play a C major chord on your guitar. You say, yes I do, look. No, you don't know how to play a C major chord on your guitar. If you turn around to me and say, yeah, I can do that, but look, I can do that, and I can do that. Yeah, you don't know how to play a C major chord on your guitar. You might even be sitting there thinking, yeah, open position, root note on A string, root note on E string shapes. Yeah, I learned those years ago. I now know it in all 5 caged positions. I know for open position, 3rd position, 5th position, 8th position, 10th position, and even up in 12th position. Yeah, you don't know how to play a C major chord on your guitar. Not to the depth that you should. Not to the depth that a pianist knows how to play a C major chord. A pianist, C, E, G, within the first few lessons. Okay, I can do it there, I can do it there, I can do it there, I can do it there. Covered, all right, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G. Within weeks, the whole instrument, C major chord, done, easy. Years later, after playing your instrument as a guitarist, you still don't know your instrument that well. You've just got a few shapes. You may have 5, you may have 2, you may have 3, but you haven't got it nailed everywhere. I was playing a learning song the other day at the progression G, B7, C and D. I'm not going to tell you what the song is because it's embarrassing. And I was thinking, where should I play this? And what I felt worked in the end, I went for back to G, G, B7, C, D. Now how easy is that? Compared to years ago, and some of you now, if you were asked to play a G, B7, C and D, you'd have gone like, fine, maybe. But that is a lot harder. I mean, technically, I mean, you saw how easy this little version I did up there. It's kind of smaller, it's more concise, it's more sophisticated, it fits better in a lot of arrangements depending what other instruments that you're playing with, blah blah blah. And it's physically easier than, you know, this. Point is, we learn it backwards. We learn chords backwards on the guitar, and people often never learn the first step, and it's this first step that you're missing. Only completely weirdly do really advanced guitarists get to learn the chords and the fretboard on the level that a beginner pianist would. It's messed up, it's completely backwards. But I'm going to show you how it's done. This is how you should learn a C major chord on your guitar. It is very easy, but I'm going to take you through a long journey to tell you how we get there, because I don't want you to have any gaps in your knowledge, okay? I want you to have a full understanding of what's going on, why things are the way they are. And you will have C major chord literally everywhere, any strings all over the fretboard, to a level that you've never had before. And it's easy. You need to know this, you need to know this. However good you are or wherever you're at, you need to know this. We're going to start with a C major chord on a single string. Okay, so here's a string, not any specific guitar string, just a string. C chord is made up of 3 notes, C, E and G. Again, forgive me for patronising or for not going into enough detail, but bear with me. So we're going to have a C at the first fret on this string. If we have that there, here's where the others are. We've got an E and a G. I'm also going to put on the octave. Now these notes are known as the root, the major third and the perfect fifth. Forgive me if I'm patronising, again, I'm sorry. Now take a moment to notice the distance between these notes. C and E, there is 4 frets. That's the distance of a major third. Between the E and the G, 3 frets, that's a minor third, and between the G and the next C, the octave, the next root up again, is a perfect fourth. So that's 5 frets, so 5 frets, which is a perfect fourth. And this pattern then repeats up the string. So all the way, if the string was infinite, C, E, G, C, E, G, this distance apart. So that's it. That's it for a single string. There you go. That's C major on a single string. Okay, now the fun really starts. You're going to love this. To help us fully understand the fretboard, we're going to work on a giant fretboard. You ready? Ta-da! Now this giant fretboard has an equal distance between the pitches of each string. This is tuned in perfect fourths. This means the distance between each string is a perfect fourth. To go over the orientation, it's like tab, just to make sure you're looking at this the right way. The bottom line is the thickest, lowest string, okay? The top line is the highest string, like tab if you read tab. So I just want everyone to be sure on the orientation of the fretboard that I've put on the screen. Now, I'm going to build a chord of C across the strings, because as you'll see, the notes of our C major chord go backwards. I'm going to build a C major chord on the C on the far right. So here's our E, the major third, and here's our G, the perfect fifth. So you'll see our C major chord works out to be a nice diagonal line sort of shape. Notice the cross string shape of the major third between the C and the E, the minor third between the E and the G, and the perfect fourth when we add the octave above it. We can then keep going, repeating the shape across the fretboard, and we get a chain of C major chords. Each one is an octave higher than the previous one. So playing each one of these is the same as playing a C chord in each octave of the piano. So I'm just going to take away the colour of the notes now, because I think the colours make it look more confusing. Now let's have a close look at our chain of C chords that we've made, and different ways we could play the C chord within the chain. We could play off 3 notes of C, E and G. Or we could play the next 3 notes, which would be E, G and C. Or we could play the next 3 notes, which would be G, C and E. Then that would bring us back again to C, E and G. So we have 3 different ways of playing a C major chord. C, E and G are root position. E, G, C are our first inversion. G, C and E are second inversion. I should also point out at this point that these 3-note chords are known as triads. So now you can view our chain of C major chords as being made up of repeating patterns of 3 shapes. Root position links into first inversion, which links into second inversion, which links into root, which links into first inversion, which links into second inversion, which links into root, and on it would go. So that's our chain of C's, C major chords. It's vital that you fully understand this and are totally familiar with it. This is fundamental. The core of how we play a C chord on a guitar is this chain of C's. This is the bit that nobody teaches, and most people have no clue about. This chain of C triads is everything. Make sure you have a thorough grasp of this chain. I can't stress this enough. This chain is everything. Now we're going to cover the whole fretboard with C chords. All we have to do is build this same chain starting on each one of the notes from our C chord along the bottom string. So we build a chain from our G. This will start with the second inversion shape because the first note we're starting on is a G. We build a chain from our E. This starts with the first inversion shape. And then we're back to a C, where we build our chain from a root position shape. And we carry on backwards as far as possible and forwards as far as possible. And there it is, a giant fretboard tuned in equal fourths with all the notes from a C major chord on. Isn't it beautiful? You should now, of course, be able to see how it's made up of our diagonal chains of C triads. But it's worth noticing how the same triads repeat in opposite diagonals. Opposite diagonal way. Take this root position triad. Notice how it repeats diagonally up 2 strings across 2 frets, find any root position triad and you'll see how the same will happen. The same goes for first inversion triads. Find one, then see how it repeats diagonally up. And of course the same for second inversion triads. This is useful to notice. It makes it easier to find the same triad the next octave up. So thankfully we don't have a fretboard this big. Yeah, our fretboard is just a chunk of this giant fretboard. So let's cut out the chunk that is our fretboard. Right, and now I'm going to delete the notes that are left over and let's centralize what we've got left to satisfy any OCD tendencies. The dots outside our fretboard that are left are open strings, open string notes, okay? Right, and just to make everyone even more comfortable, let's put in our marker dots below the fretboard. So there it is, our little chunk of the infinite fretboard from another realm. Now let's go over everything that we now know now that we are looking at a normal 6-string fretboard, a normal size 6-string fretboard. We know our 3 major chord shapes, triads, which go across 3 strings. We have our root position triad shape, which we build off a C, our first inversion triad shape, which we build off an E, our second inversion triad shape, which we build off a G. This sequence will keep repeating all along the fretboard up and down. And we can do this on any set of 3 strings. We can also see each one of our 3 shapes repeating in a diagonal fashion across the fretboard, each one being an octave higher than the previous one. Our root position triad, our first inversion triad, our second inversion triad. So there it is, a thorough knowledge of a C major chord all over the fretboard using just 3 shapes in perfectly repeating patterns. With the way things are here, if we want to play a 6-string C major chord across the whole fretboard, a big C major chord, we get these ridiculous unplayable shapes such as this, 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 and this. Ouch. So in order to make these bigger chords playable, the guitar alters the tuning between the G and B string, which has the effect of moving everything on the B and top E string up 1 fret, like this. So we have this, now we have this. We have this, now we have this. We have this, then we have this. Okay. What exactly the guitar does here is change the perfect 4th distance between those 2 strings to a major 3rd. It then carries on in perfect 4ths. This is massive. And yet this is something that's very rarely spoken about. I remember hearing about it years ago, but couldn't see the relevance to my understanding of the fretboard or how it made anything any easier. This is because I was taught like every other guitarist, starting with open position stuff, chords, a couple of scales, then some 2-octave closed position scales, bar chords, etc. And as I try to convey in many of my videos, this is messed up and is the result of a lack in musicianship amongst the guitarists compared to many other instrumentalists. So we've changed the tuning between the 3rd and 2nd string, the G and the B string, to a major 3rd, and now we have the fretboard that we all know and love. Let's put in the names of the strings now that we have our actual fretboard. E to A is a perfect 4th, A to D is a perfect 4th, D to G is a perfect 4th, G to B is a major 3rd, B to E is a perfect 4th. Now, thanks to this cheeky little adjustment, we have much more comfortable, playable, bigger chord shapes, such as this, 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 and this. But oh no, I hear you cry. This has now messed up our triad shapes on the higher strings. Yes, but only a little bit. Our root position triad on D, G and B is now this. It naturally should be this, as we have learned, but now is this. we can see how the top note has slid up 1 fret. Our first inversion on the D, G and B strings is now this. It was this, but now it's this. Again, see how the top note goes up. Our second inversion shape on the D, G and B strings is now this. It was this, but now it's this. And once more, see how the top note goes up 1 fret. So what so far has now been these 3 shapes on the D, G and B strings are now these 3 shapes. At first you may groan with annoyance that our logical layout has been messed up, but it's actually not a bad thing. Firstly, you shouldn't have to consider these as new shapes to learn. Consider them as the same 3 shapes, just with a little caveat in the back of your mind that it's just been adjusted for the B string. Secondly, this alteration actually gives us a much more comfortable triad shape. In fact, the D, G, B string triad shapes are my favourite. They're really easy, make for easy, comfortable chord changes. So don't hate these little fellas. They'll become your best friends, I promise. Okay, so now we need to go over the G, B, E string triad shapes. Because it is both of these top 2 strings that have moved up, we need to alter our triad shapes by moving the top 2 notes up 1 fret. So, our root position triad shape is now this. It was this. See how the top 2 notes have moved up. Now it's this. Our first inversion triad shape is now this. It was this, but it's now this. Again, see how the top 2 notes have moved up. Our second inversion triad shape is now this. It was this, but now it's this. Again, see how the top 2 notes have moved up. So what so far has been these 3 shapes on the G, B and E string are now these 3 shapes. I'm sure it's obvious, but I should just point out that you should alter your fingerings of these triad shapes accordingly. Consider them as the same 3 shapes with just that little caveat that you've adjusted them for the B string compensation. And again, these 3 triads shapes are actually more comfortable to play than your normal basic ones. Not quite as comfortable and easy to play as the D, G and B string ones, I don't think, but they're friendly, chirpy, cheeky little chappy shapes as well. Now, we've gone through the whole process of understanding major chords on the guitar fretboard. So we've gone through quite a lot here, and I don't want this to seem too daunting. Quite the opposite, in fact. But like I said at the beginning, I wanted to give you the entire background so that there's no gaps in your understanding. Now let's just condense this down, summarise all you need to know and put it all together by showing you how you should get to know a C major chord, and indeed any major chord on your entire fretboard. And you'll see how easy it actually is. So to learn to play a C major chord over the entire fretboard, there are 3 steps. First step, learn to play it on a single string. Find the notes of a C major chord on 1 string. You can start by finding the note of C and then play the E and the G and the next C and so on. Don't forget to go backwards and find any notes that you've missed. So here it is on the bottom E string. Got C, E, G, C, and any that you've missed. Here it is on the A string. We've got C at the 3rd fret, E at the 7th fret, G at the 10th fret, C at the 15th, and so on. Here it is on the D string. We got a C, E, G, C, and miss any that you've missed. And on the G string, we've got a C, E, G, C, and so on. On the B string, C, E, G, C, so on. On the top E string, C, E, G, C. Make sure you can do this without any hesitation when finding the notes on any string. Step 2. Play all of the 3 triads on each set of 3 strings. So start by finding the first note from the C major chord on the bottom E string. It's a G at the 3rd fret. So because it's a G at the bottom, it's a 2nd position triad. And go from there up through the triads as far as you can go. So off the G, you've got the 2nd inversion. Then onto a C, that's root position. Then onto our E, 1st inversion. Okay, and so on. Do the same thing on the A, D and G strings. The first one you will find is a root position, as I see. That's going to be an open position root inversion shape. It's the same shape. Then we've got an E, 1st inversion, our G, 2nd inversion, our C, and so on. Same on the next 3, that's the D, G and B strings. This one starts with the 1st inversion triad, got an E, and of course now we have the B string altered shapes. So up through, we got the 1st inversion, we go to 2nd inversion, root position, 1st inversion again, 2nd inversion, and the final set of 3 strings, this one actually starts with a 2nd inversion triad in open position. And again, of course, we have the B and E string altered shapes. So the next is a root position, 1st inversion, 2nd inversion, back up to root, etc. Finally, step 3. Play through the chains of C major triads from the bottom E string. So the first one starts on our low G with a 2nd inversion triad. This goes into a root position triad, into a 1st inversion triad, 2nd inversion triad. Be sure to go up and down the chain considering the inversions you are playing and what the notes are of each triad. Next we should move up to a C, where we've got a root position triad, goes into a 1st inversion, into a 2nd inversion, into a root position. You should go up and down these chains. And as you do, you should notice some shapes that you're familiar with. For instance, in this one, you can see what you probably think of and know as an A shape. But now you know this as a 2nd inversion triad. Next we have an E. So we start with the 1st inversion triad, into a 2nd inversion triad, into root position, into 1st inversion. The next one is another G, and you should recognize that it's the same chain pattern as the first one we did, which started on a G back down there. Of course it's the same chain pattern. Why would it be any different? They just repeat for as long as your fretboard is. 3 notes in a major chord, 3 triad shapes, 3 chains. That's it. Here they are laid out in their full glory. And now you know how to play a C major chord on your instrument as well as a pianist knows how to play within the first few months or even weeks of playing. These chains are the natural layout for a C major chord, but of course we cannot play all of the notes at the same time. So to play bigger chords we use notes from other chains. As you look at this layout of C major chains, those of you familiar with the cage system of major chord shapes will see those 5 basic major chord shapes. Only now you can see they are mainly notes from a natural chain, but with a couple of notes taken from another one to make it playable in one position. And then, because they are now in position shapes, spanning 4 frets, we can also take them and play each one as an open position chord. Hence our caged open position chord shapes. So do you see now how this is backwards? The logical way, all things being equal, to learn and understand major chords, or any chord, on the guitar is to learn the 3 triad shapes. They then give us our chains of triads, which then give us our big in position barred chords, which then can be played as open position chords. Instead, we start and learn the open position chord shapes, seeing them as random shapes, every chord being different, seeming to have no relationship to each other. Then we learn a couple of bar chord shapes, which we sort of see are like a couple of open position shapes, but now with a bar chord. Many people even stop there. It's only much more advanced players that then learn all the open position chord shapes as closed, caged system chords, and then, and only then, do hugely advanced players get into playing and understanding triads, which should have been the first step. How messed up is that? It's no wonder guitarists lack in musicianship, and half of them don't even know their own instrument well enough to play a C major chord everywhere on it. Hopefully now you're not one of those people. I will put a link in the description below to a PDF file with all the important diagrams from this video. Not all of them. I've made bloody hundreds of them, and each dot different. So I won't give you all of those, but the pertinents, the important ones, I'm going to put into a PDF file and put a link to them in the description below. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like me and subscribe. It makes me feel loved.